So just a reminder of the last couple of meetings. I don't know that we need to do introductions this time. If anybody feels the need, just say something and we'll introduce everybody again. We do have Carol back with us today from our transportation department. She was not here last time. So yes, thank you for being here, Carol. She'll be the answer person probably for most questions tonight. We presented last time. Oh, we got a new person. Kwan, is that right? Yes. All right. Well, welcome. The last time we presented a little more refined map of our proposal, or we're calling it draft 2, I think, of our proposal. And it just really was the same proposal with the boundary reflecting a little more clearly where the boundary line would be along Pumpkin Ridge Road. So since the last meeting, we have continued to have our survey open online. And Jane, I don't believe we've seen any more activity on that. Is that right? So we don't have any new feedback from the website, but I would open it up at this point to accept any additional feedback we have from you or questions regarding the proposal that we have on the table right now. I can tell you we do have a meeting scheduled next week, and I'm happy to continue to meet. But if there are no new ideas for this map or changes to it, we could also go ahead and make a recommendation to the school board tonight. So just at this point, I'm just going to open it up. I am going to present the map that we have on the table right now and just open it up for questions or comments. So I hope you're seeing that map right now. And I'm happy to facilitate questions or comments.
Is there a way to zoom that in a little bit so that we can see
Sure.
street level?
You know what? I think what I'm going to do is stop presenting. Carol actually has the transportation software that is a little more, she can drill down and give us a little more refined look at it. So Carol, do you want to take over?
Sure, absolutely. Let me get that going. Let's see.
And if you have questions about specific locations and where the boundaries would be for that specific location, Carol should be able to drill down and give us a pretty good idea.
I can. So what you're looking at right now is that because I'm on a laptop, I don't have a screen big enough to show you the whole thing unless we went tiny, and then nobody's gonna be able to see it anyways. But basically right now, what I'm showing you, if you guys can all see this, is this kind of this creamy white piece in here. That would be the Atfalati boundary area. The green part again would be the existing North Plains. This road is Dairy Creek. This road right here that winds is Pumpkin Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just keep scooting us down here. So again, this is Dairy Creek that works its way out, and this continues to be Pumpkin Ridge that comes out to Shady Brook, which is here. And then here's kind of what we call in-town North Plains. Oops. And I'm going to keep going up. If you need it bigger, let me know. And then obviously this is 26, Highway 26 through here. This is West Union's attendance area. This is the existing Patterson. And again, everything here in this kind of this creamy white would be the new school's boundaries.
Okay, so for in town, if we could just zoom in on that, we still stayed with Glencoe as the dividing line up through the rest of town.
Correct. Let me
So
get that bigger
That
for
part,
you.
that part didn't change.
Correct.
No. So you're correct. This is Glencoe Road right here. Then it, turns into Shady Brook and goes out of town. So basically, correct. If you currently live on the
West side.
side, thank you. I was listening. I was like, which way is that? West side, in this area, you would stay at the existing North Plains, and then on the east side, you now are going to go to Atfalati, which is right in here.
Okay, I was just confused because I think where your mouse cursor has been is actually
Yes.
Jackson School rather than Glencoe.
Yeah. Your cursor is not showing where. Yeah.
Oh,
There
I
you go.
I forget. I've got my little hand in here now, so
Yes.
I think it's something different than you are. There's Shady Brook. Here's and then Glencoe. So can you guys see my cursor now?
Yeah, but it's not pointing to where you're talking about.
Yeah,
So-
Carol, your cursor is having a mind of its own in terms of.
Oh, really? See, because what I see is it's just going like crazy, moving around it, but apparently what you're seeing is it's not moving.
It's moving. It's just not where you're talking about. Where you're pointing at is not what you're talking about. So
All right.
if the question is Glencoe Road being the dividing line through town, that's correct. And everything to the west of Glencoe Road would be would stay at the existing North Plains Elementary School. Everything to the east of Glencoe Road then would go to the new school.
Fantastic. And again, my apologies because I had a conflict and missed last time, but with the changes that you made to the boundary lines, what does that do to the population in each of the two schools?
So if you were with us the very first meeting and we presented the student breakdown, this has not changed that. I think, Tom, you said there would maybe a 5-student swing from the existing school to the new school. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it was just 5 or 6 students. I have a map up if you would like me to kind of give you a look at that.
Sure. Carol, you need to stop
sharing.
Okay. So
Everybody's got their
I'm
own
working
map.
with Davis Demographics, our company that works with us on this mapping and for all of our projections. And so we should have some new projections, but I can just kind of give you a sense. It wasn't really that hard because like up in these areas, there aren't that many kids. So,
Right.
So it wasn't too hard. So can you see this map okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, no?
Yes, we can see it. I'm not sure what we're looking at.
Okay, so it's the same thing. The whole pink area. If I pulled up the right screen, are you looking at the map?
We are, but we still see all the study areas. It doesn't look like the boundaries are showing.
No, because we have to work with Davis to get these all changed.
Okay.
But I wanted to kind of give you a sense. So what really happened here is, and I can't really change my cursor to something that's more of a pointer, but if you can see my cursor here, what happened was, along Pumpkin Ridge that goes up through here,
Yeah.
the problem was that based on the study areas that they had put together, that Davis had put together, we sort of went in and out of the study areas with along Pumpkin Ridge. And that was the main thing, working with transportation with Carol, was that we really needed to like put kids on one side or the other side of Pumpkin Ridge. So her map basically, like for example, in this area right up here, if you can see my cursor, that area up there, this is Pumpkin Ridge. So Carol's boundary goes right to the west side of Pumpkin Ridge, excuse me, to the east side of Pumpkin Ridge. So it pulls those kids. Wait a minute, is that right? Carol, east side or west side? I don't have both maps.
West side. West side.
West side is the existing
So
school.
it leaves those kids over into the new into the new into Atfalati Ridge, but then like in these little places, like up in here and up on the top here, it just draws a more distinct boundary between the two attendance areas, following Pumpkin Ridge and dividing these study areas in half. So when I did, and these red dots that are in here, the red and green dots are actually resident students. So when I looked at this and I started counting up kids, like if we took this area down in here and moved this boundary that I had drawn right here all the way to the west side of Pumpkin Ridge, it only picked up a couple kids. So when I started counting up kids with the new boundary that was drawn, there were like 5 or 6 kids on the North Plains side that moved over into the Atfalati Ridge side, and there were 5 or 6 kids that moved from the Atfalati Ridge side over into the Pumpkin Ridge side, or excuse me, over into the North Plains side. So it was pretty much a wash.
Perfect.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, of course. And it you know honors it takes into account the idea that we can't have kids along Pumpkin Ridge Road, some of them going to North Plains, some of them going to Atfalati Ridge, back and forth. We had to keep that boundary pretty much solid. Yeah. So it was encouraging to see that
West Union one cuts way over into like almost up to Jackson School Road. Probably the last time I wasn't here. Are we expecting more development in there? Because I mean, it's like so close to this new school and so far from West Union.
Yeah, we're not expecting it, and there's really no students in that portion of West Union. The development that we're seeing is all to the west of Jackson School Road, and I think that's where they're anticipating future development in the Sunset Ridge area.
And again, don't forget that on the map that Tom is showing you, it's not as detailed with the lines as it is on the Versatrans map, which for transportation. So we divided it very cleanly so that it took up both sides of the street. So as much as we could, so that we didn't have kids that lived on one side of the street, went to one school, kids on the other side of the street went to the other school. So that neighborhoods kind of kept complete.
So this area down in here where I'm pointing is kind of an example. That was, we had this, and so it goes, it's on the Atfalati Ridge, then it goes out, then it goes in, then it goes out. We refined that with Carol's map to get rid of all of that in and out business. But like I said, in terms of total students, it didn't really make a difference.
What are the triangles? Or there's
rectangles.
The red. Well, yeah, the red. There's the red, and then there's the green.
Okay, so in this map, what I did, because I wanted to get a really good sense of how many students were currently enrolled in those attendance areas, and how many students were actually in 2021 were enrolled in our online school.
Okay.
So the green dots are the students that were enrolled, that are currently this year enrolled in the online school.
Okay.
In Hillsboro Online Academy. What we don't know going forward is how many of those students will actually come back to their resident school after we're out of this, situation that we're in right now, next fall. So I wanted to get a sense of how many of those students were in each of those areas. So you can see, like, for example, right now down here in the current North Plains attendance area, we got, especially in this downtown cluster, we have quite a few students that are currently enrolled in HOA, in Hillsboro Online Academy. So our prediction is that a good portion of those kids are going to come back to the resident school once they have an opportunity to do so. But that remains to be seen.
So Tom, I really appreciate you compiling the HOA kids as well. Just to clarify, the numbers that I saw on the zoomed out version, the 160 for North Plains and 150 for Atfalati, was that inclusive of both the pink and the green dots, or just the pink?
It was inclusive of all of the dots, because what we're
Awesome.
counting in those calculations is all of the students who actually live, are resident in those attendance areas, irrespective of where they go to school. So there's actually students who are in those attendance areas who could very well be going to private school, to another online school. You know, those aren't that's not what these maps represent. It's all of the students who are enrolled in our district,
right,
who live in those attendance areas.
Right. It would not be private school students or
No.
other. If they're enrolled in another program, they wouldn't show up here.
That's
It's
correct.
just kids that are enrolled. And the other part of that is that we do have students who live outside of the North Plains attendance area that attend North Plains elementary schools. We have inter-district transfers all throughout the district. So,
right. So
this is the students that actually live within the attendance area at this time and are enrolled in our district.
And are currently enrolled in our district.
So it doesn't include incoming kinders, and that's going to be another
Correct.
for us probably, because we have a number of people that waited to start kindergarten.
Sure.
And other things too. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Becky, I'm so sorry, you cut out right when you said the number of how many kinders.
Oh, I have no idea. I just said incoming kinders. I'm hoping.
We're actually right now, like, we have a kinder fair coming up at the end of the month, and we're right now starting to get to the point where we're able to see how many new kinders are going to be enrolled. But right now, today, we don't know yet.
At the board meeting, we had said like overall it was like 100 or like 300 kinders district wide, right? So
Correct.
we know that a huge percentage of the students that chose not to come to school this fall were kinders.
Correct. Jackie, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, I do. And this might be a district question rather than just a this committee question. So people moving in and out in 10 years, is this boundary still going to make sense? Or is that, I mean, I think that's a fair question. I just don't want to have to redo anything. I know eventually, yeah.
So our projections go out 7 years. If we go out more than 7 years, we're starting to project on our projections. So we go out 7 years, and based on those 7-year projections, we do have capacity at both North Plains and Atfalati Ridge.
So I think I'm thinking along the same lines as Jackie, and I'm sorry if I'm pushing on this a little too much. The Davis demographics projections, I'm assuming, are based on really great data, but I'm curious how those projections from them compare to the actuals for the existing developments that that are live and have residents now. Because when we go back to the 0.3 kids per house in the Bryn Hill development, based on just my community perspective, those recent developments that we've had have a whole lot more than 0.3 kids per. If you think about, Wasco Extended down behind the school and what I know about Sunset Ridge, there's a lot of kids in there. So I'm curious whether the numbers and the projections from the software have been compared to once those are occupied.
They have, and what we found, and of course it's a little difficult to kind of tease those numbers out because this year is so different. But
for sure,
we were at about 400 students, just over 400 students before kind of the world changed last year. So this time last year, we were at about 400 students. That's more or less where we had projected that we would be, where Davis had projected we would be. their projections continued to show continued growth with the new developments. For instance, the development across North Avenue. So I feel pretty good about their projections. What we don't know at this point is how many of those students that were here that left are going to come back. So their projections do include estimates of the students per household. They've been in contact with all of the developers, both in Sunset Ridge and in North Avenue. So I feel confident that at least for the developments that we're aware of right now that have building permits and everything in the shop, the Davis numbers are good. That's not to say that, 15 years from now, if they bring in a whole nother chunk of urban growth boundary, and we continue to grow that area, that we won't have to look at potentially the boundaries at some future time. But that's always the case with all of our schools. So, Mark?
Oh, nice echo. To build on Jackie's question, less of a capacity at these two schools. I'm thinking more in terms of as other places grow and change, the influence of having these be. So 7 years from now, we never did a re-boundary for Brookwood, for example. If that rippled north and then that rippled north and then that rippled north, it doesn't have to go too far before you hit West Union, right? So, so I guess more from the district-wide perspective, these two boundaries as drawn now, how do they influence the capacity at our other schools with South Hillsboro coming online and Brookwood having more capacity, all that kind of stuff? And really, I don't know that impacts this committee. It may be more of a question for a district-wide board meeting, but that's a question I have.
Yeah, and we have had the same conversation, and I think that will more impact the conversation we have when we go to establish that first elementary school in South Hillsboro that's going to come online in 2023. We have created additional capacity right now at Brookwood. The way it stands right now, the Rosedale elementary boundaries, which is where all of South Hillsboro goes right now until we get that new school online, extend across TV Highway into what could potentially be a Brookwood attendance area. So it could be that we could expand Brookwood south to pick up a portion of what is now Rosedale Elementary, and use that to help with the growth that we're anticipating down in South Hillsboro. But I don't think any of that should impact this boundary at this time anyway. Jackie?
And Adam, I could just say too that, I'm sorry, that to off what Mark was saying is that you also have to remember that we took a whole chunk of area that along Jackson School Road that is completely undeveloped and purposely shifted some stuff around that did not impact students so that they would go to Atfalati. So that will also alleviate future growth for Patterson and then that kind of thing, that they will go to the new school.
Right. And that is one of the areas that has been talked about as a future urban growth expansion area, is that North Hillsboro area. Yeah. Jackie, you have your hand up.
I do. So I think my question was a little bit misleading. So I know you guys have done an amazing job with looking at this current location of students and to make sure that students on the same street didn't go to two different schools, which is amazing. And I guess there is no way, of course, in 10 years to know how that's going to change. That's what I mean by, is this boundary sustainable in that capacity where, does that make sense?
It does. And what I can say is for the time horizon that we're looking at, which is that 7 years, yes, I feel confident that it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. That's why we have redistricting, right? I mean, the redrawing boundaries. Yeah. So, but I'm amazed and I'm very impressed, and everyone here has done, wow, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't. The logistics of it just make my head blow up. So thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Other thoughts, questions, specific areas you want to focus on? Kevin, you took your mute button off.
No.
Oh, okay. Thought that meant you wanted to talk. Okay. All right. Well, as we kind of said when we started this process, I think what we've proposed is a pretty simple solution to an issue where we have basically one school on the eastern side of North Plains, one school on the western side, and we kind of just carved it right down the middle. And it seems to work in terms of current population, splitting the current population, and it also allows for future growth for both schools. So I think it makes sense. I think it passes the eye test. And I guess I'm looking for any other feedback that we could help to make a decision on this.
Adam, are you just needing us to say we're good with this so that we can?
Well,
move forward?
yeah. At some point, this committee's job is to make a recommendation to the board, and at some point, whether that's tonight or next week, we need to come up with a recommendation. We'll continue once we have that recommendation. We'll put it out on the website so the community knows that at the April, I think it's 23rd board meeting, the board will be considering this. So there'll be ample opportunity for anybody else who wants to weigh in on this. But that'll be the process moving forward once we have a recommendation to take to the board. Mark,
I'm
sorry.
fine with making a recommendation on that tonight. I think
Okay.
there's clear enough data on this.
Okay. Mark, you had your hand up.
How safe do you think we are in assuming that anybody who might have a problem with this would have shown up?
Well, I'm not sure how else we could have solicited their feedback. I mean, we've had these open meetings, we've had the survey online, we've reached out in as many forums as we can. I guess.
I think Becky has pushed it out through her newsletter that does get read by families. I mean, it's been pushed out even at the school level quite a bit. So I feel like we've done a really great job of trying to get it out there as much as possible.
And the other
and she'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, it's once kids are back in the building, at least the K2 kids will be back in the building on the 29th. We'll have more opportunities to share this with more folks kind of face to face, which will be another opportunity for people to weigh in.
And also, Kevin, any other feedback from community social media that you've heard of?
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet. I think again the big issue was always Pumpkin Ridge. There's always challenges. I think a couple business owners that I talked to of trying to integrate the east side of town with the west side of town, but I just don't see a way where you could have kids traveling across Glencoe Road safely, continuously, especially since there's a new bridge that's being developed, pedestrian bridge that the school district graciously supported with $250,000. So I think that's I think it's just the right approach. It's the right look, and I think it's a fair way of dividing the town.
And I can say too, from a transportation standpoint, this has been the easiest one as far as like parents. The only calls I have received about this is my child currently goes on the roads that go between Pumpkin Ridge and Dairy Creek. My child currently goes down to catch the bus. Is that still going to be? Yes. My child currently goes up to catch the bus. Is that still going to be? Yes. I mean, that literally has been the only questions that we have received. It's been very smooth.
Hey, Carol, can you talk briefly? I tried to tried to answer this last week, but once a decision is made, once we have these new boundaries drawn, how does transportation reach out to folks to let them know what the new school is, what the new stop is, what the new times are? How do you guys do that?
Well, again, this one is really pretty smooth, because I think that obviously, communications office will be doing a ton of communicating to families, as well as the new school coming online, that, those things will be put out. Then at that point, parents will be able to see a clear map, just like we have now for all of our schools, of where each school site has a map that shows their attendance area. So families will be able to look at that. And then once, I'm hoping we get kids back in school, it settles down a little bit, and we'll be working with Jane's office to actually start putting in, addresses into an official Atfalati boundary, a North Plains boundary. And then in the summer, when we route, I'm sure that we will do as we've done in the past, and Beth will help put together a letter that will go out in their welcome back packets. The kids the schools send out, welcoming them. And then the routing will it'll basically take what we have now and just divide it a little bit. So some of the buses will still go to the regular North Plains or existing North Plains. Some will go to the new, and then at that time, parents will get their routing information. Luckily, in this situation, the existing walk zone for current North Plains will basically stay the same. Yeah. And for Atfalati, it will really pretty much just be the neighborhood there that's around that school. So even that actually will be not a big surprise, no really weird things. It'll be pretty solid.
Did we address this in previous meetings? Is the time start and end time of both schools the same time?
I don't know that.
That actually will, I can't 100% say it either. I don't know. We're probably going to have to look at when we set up a bell schedule, we look at what are how the routes fit in with the elementaries so that they can go on, because every route does, except for those country routes, are going to do at least 2 elementaries and then secondary schools. So, just like we've done for the hybrid return to school, we kind of had to tear our existing bell schedule apart to kind of fit it together with educational hours and transportation and everything else. We will obviously have to do the same thing. So I can't really answer that yet. I'm guessing that they may very well end up starting at the same time, because you will have to take into account the buses for their secondary will still have to go up Pumpkin Ridge, over Dixie Mountain, in those areas. So if you made me actually answer that right this second, I would say they're probably going to be the same. My feelings may change about that once we figure out what fall is.
You will be a great elected official.
Yeah, I second that one. Uh-huh.
That scares me right there.
So not to put any pressure on the transportation staff, will these addresses be available through the Find My School app? And at what date do you think that could happen?
If this pandemic would just go away, we could probably do it here in just a few weeks. But with that, I'm guessing, because we'll have to go in and redraw some mapping. We will probably know the actual addresses. Once we get secondary, which I think secondary hybrid starts April 19th. Once we can get that up and get that routed and setted, then we can start working on that. So, but I know that a lot of that a lot of this is going to depend on that. So we're gonna have to figure that out. I really don't know. But I know that it's going to happen probably like, yeah, by the end of April, May.
Yeah. And there's also
the end of school.
Yeah.
There's also the synergy portion of it too, getting that information into the address grid, so the office managers will know as well.
Exactly.
And so at this time, I think we're recommending that new enrollees just continue to enroll online and with North Plains as their home school, and then we adjust them later based on what the mapping and the grid.
Until we get the office set up at the new.
Yeah.
School. Okay. So I heard Kevin say he's comfortable. Oh, Trista, you raised your hand.
Thank you. I also just wanted to chime in really briefly. I think you guys, I know you've done a lot of work behind the scenes, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. I think it's really good that we've been thoughtful about future growth. We know that Burn Hill subdivision on North Avenue is going to have 500 homes. We know that most likely, Jackson School area is going to be expanded into the UGB. We know all those things. So I think that you guys have done a great job with planning that. And I think the only takeaway I would just add is for future, I know South Hillsboro will be your next big project.
Yeah.
Is thinking about the portion of the community that is not currently enrolled with HSD. And I say that only because I think you've done as much as you can to a certain extent with trying to capture that feedback from residents. Yeah. But thinking about my own personal self, I would never have known about any of this if it weren't for just my involvement in the community.
Sure.
Not super active on Facebook. I don't receive newsletters because I don't technically have a child enrolled in HSD.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe just trying to think outside the box. And I know, Jane, I know I went off with you really briefly, but just thinking about South Hillsboro, I don't know if there's a budget or if it's possible to send out a small postcard mailer to people within that affected boundary. But just thinking about myself, I moved to this neighborhood for Atfalati Ridge, and I would be really upset if I wasn't in the loop and I was like, wait a second, you're changing the boundaries. And then, my son goes to kindergarten and I had no idea. So that would be my only takeaway, just thinking about that other spot.
I think part of it too is the challenge of having to do everything virtually. Usually with the boundary changes, there'd be some formal meetings, and then obviously more trying to get people into those physical meetings, and it's been a challenge, and I totally acknowledge that, and I totally agree. I think with South Hillsboro too, we're going to have to do more outreach to the Hispanic population that's down there. So I take all your comments and your advisement, and I appreciate it always. But yeah, it's been difficult communicating in a virtual world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you guys have done a great job, and I can't wait to meet some of you in person one day. I feel like it's all
we'll see virtual, you at the new school here. Yeah.
But thank you. And I also would follow along with Kevin that I would move to approve this plan.
Okay. Ariel, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah. I also really appreciate all the hard work that has gone into this and showing us some of those data points so that we can really fully understand the strategy behind it. I'm comfortable moving forward, and I think some of these things where we may have missed people here or there because of these unusual circumstances can hopefully be resolved with some flexibility for transfer requests between the two schools. Sure. I wouldn't imagine that would be a large percentage, but making sure that that's available, I think, is a good plan B for anyone who did get left out of the loop.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And we have, we've talked a little bit about that being beyond the scope of our recommendation, but I do agree that we need to make sure that we, especially since we have capacity at both buildings, that we be thoughtful in making those transfer requests available if we can. So, okay, so I think I heard from our 3 community members that they're comfortable moving forward. Mark, Jackie, are you comfortable with receiving this recommendation this time? Okay.
Yep, thumbs up from me.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your time and energy in this. This has actually been a whole lot simpler, I think Carol said, than what we've had to go through with some of our other boundary adjustments. And I'm guessing that the South Hillsboro one will be a little more challenging, but I do appreciate all your time and energy. And I believe it's the 23rd of April. We'll be taking this to the board. Those meetings are all virtual like this one. So if you're interested in seeing this through to the finish, feel free to jump on that meeting, and we'll be making that recommendation.
So it's the 13th, Adam. Is
of April? Okay. Is there just the one meeting in April?
It's a work session, I believe.
We usually take these to the regular board meeting.
Maybe bring it to us and then we vote on it later, or I don't know. Yeah, it seems like we wouldn't be voting on it on the 13th.
Right. Well, yeah. I think it'll be officially approved at, what would that be then, the 27th? Jane's looking at it up.
Yeah. Yes, the 27th.
Okay.
Is the full
scratch the 23rd, 27th. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
but I mean, I may mention it next week.
Oh, sure. I'll be doing a board update to let the board know that we do have a recommendation, and that kind of some of the details, but the official act won't happen until then. And in the meantime, we'll have it up on the website with the note that this is the recommendation that we'll be moving forward. All right. That's all I got. Thank you all. Go have your dinner now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.